All right, the meeting is now being recorded. If we could just go around the table quickly to introduce ourselves. This will be, to start with, we're going to we'll introduce ourselves, and then we're going to do some housekeeping for the building committee meeting, just to open it and then close it, because we have a quorum here, and we're going to move to the information meeting. But if we could start just going around the table.
Yep, Dave Kersey, Vice Chair of the committee.
Bill Sipley, Chair of the committee.
Mike Petrovic, architect, Michael Petrovic Architects.
Elena Brugos as Select Board Chair and alternate Select Board member of the committee.
Peg Noguera, Council on Aging.
Michael Byrne, committee member.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As I said, indicated before, we're going to open up the meeting, which is the normal building meeting, because we have a quorum of folks here. And we're going to make a motion, and I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. No, and move it into the information meeting.
Right, so
We're going to move the meeting into the information meeting.
I think we could adjourn probably after the information
Okay.
session. I think, Jeremy, does that sound right to you?
Yes, thank you. So for everyone else, I'm Jeremy Stoll, Town Administrator. So yeah, we have a quorum of the committee. You'll be discussing items germane to the committee. So the meeting should stay in session until that discussion's over and adjourn after the information session, please.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Mike is sharing his slides, which is, we'll be going through. We're going to first, we've completed our introduction. We're going to give it a brief history, the need and the priority. We're going to talk about the detailed design, cost implications. Jeremy will fill us in, select board comments, and just general comments and questions we have amongst ourselves and anyone else. With that, Mike, if you next slide. Okay, we're moving to the next slide, Charlie.
Yeah.
Just try maybe down here.
Let's try that. There we go.
There we go. Okay, history of the project. I just want to put some things in perspective. 50 years ago, in 1974, the Council of Aging decided they needed a home for the seniors within Mendon. They used places like Huff School, Misco School, McDonald's on 140, and St. Mary's Church periodically. They had no home, but they had places they could go every now and then. So that went on for a number of years, as you can see. In 1989 and 90, the Mendon Committee opened up a new center, which is currently located on Providence Street. And that's the center that was done by generosity and split equity. Town invested no money in that, just townspeople built it. In 2005, a second floor and a garage was added, again donated by townspeople. Shortly thereafter, I think there was a fire station that was completed as a town project. The next event with the after 10 years, or 2015, 10 years ago, it was recognized that the center, even with the addition, was too small at that point, and surveys and studies began. And then in 2017 and 18, the first study was completed and did not go to vote due to other priorities that were in the pipeline for the town. And I think, Chief, we built your police station in 2019. In 2021, the design was completed, the second design with a reduced scope, but it didn't have all the implications and needs. We didn't have a detailed forecast of what the program requirements and or the staff or the people requirements would be. So for 34 years, the building has been the home for the seniors in the community. Today, it doesn't meet ADA compatibility compliance. It doesn't have enough room for functions and activities. And in 2024, a third design was completed. We brought it to the voters. It passed the town meeting with a 2/3 majority, but did not pass the ballot vote. It lost by 52 votes. Very slim loss. Recognizing that, the committee went to the select board. The select board and the committee decided that if we could do some concessions, potentially, the priority was still there, the need was still there. So the committee went back to work to try to reduce the cost, but still maintain the programs. So in 2024, the fourth design and the reduced size and cost was presented to the select board and now being presented and discussed to the community and going for vote in November. And with that, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the center update itself. The need is still there. We have situations today where we can't satisfy. We have an example where we have veterans program that we'll have in coming weeks. We have 200 plus veterans in town. We can fit 45 veterans within the community. When we use places like the Unitarian Church, it can hold about 125 people, but still doesn't support everybody. And there's no access for handicapped people in that building at all, without climbing up steps that are being carried up steps. So we really don't have a place for these kind of venues. If we look at things like Christmas parties, other events, we have wait lists and we turn people. This is not just a center for the seniors, though. It's also a center. It houses the food pantry, which is now being managed out of a basement. It houses the disaster recovery center, which is a place for emergencies. And we don't have adequate room and space there. And essentially, we've been out of space for recognized in 2015. We went to the town with a 13.2 million request in May. We reduced that to 11.9 in our current vote till November. And the square footage reduced from 11.6 to 9.6. And we'll talk more about the individual impact, but the committee now has worked diligently with the select board and the rest of the town. We're trying to present to the town why we need this and a new cost analysis for it. With that, Mike, I'll turn it to you.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Phil. So as Phil mentioned, my name is Mike Petrovic. I'm the architect that's been working on this project for a number of years. My background is that I do have significant experience in public architecture, and specifically in projects of this magnitude, several senior centers, and most recently the Walpole Mass Senior Center and the Wellesley Senior Center. On my team to work with us to provide costing and budgeting is a company called PM&C, and their construction managers and estimating, and they've provided that background for us. They bring to the table daily market pricing, so they're really experienced in that. So we know that our budgets are accurate. They have a good history of providing budgets for projects that when they actually go to construction, they're on. So as I mentioned, we have many years of experience in several areas that concern this project, senior centers, other municipal projects. We're also doing some residential. We are big in sustainable design, and I myself have been a professor of architecture at Keene State College for several years. So when it comes to this project, Phil mentioned that the need started being looked at back in 2016. And so one asked themselves, what did you do and how did you get here with this project? And the idea of a feasibility study is to kind of look at all options. Do we do something with the existing building? Can we build on the existing site? Do we look at another site? It's really looking at what's possible, what's practical, and what's financially viable. And you work with the committee and the staff at the senior center to understand what their need is and what they're missing, what programs they can't provide. And you put together a program of spaces that make up the senior center, and you come up with a total square footage. And in this case, we did site selection. We looked at a number of sites. We looked at compliance with zoning and land use rules, building programming, which I mentioned, conceptual design in many different forms and shapes, and what would look best for the community and what suits the community of Mendon, what's affordable, what they think that the community is willing to bear, the technical aspects of a building. A municipal building is not a house. It is a fact of public building. It must meet all aspects of public accessibility, It is a building that houses a lot of the public, so you have lots of people in there. And so it really meets, it's an assembly building. So therefore, it isn't a house. It isn't a basic building. It's a fairly complicated building. The benefits of going through this process is you take all of these pieces and you look at them in different ways, and it allows the community to make informed decisions and discover unknowns along the way, which we did discover several, and we've worked through those and came up with several designs. Phil went through the senior center, kind of the timeline from the perspective of the town, and I've been involved in this since 2018. They've gone through several iterations of this. These are not my designs. This is not what I feel the town should have as the architect. My role in this is to interpret what the community members or the representatives of the community feel the senior center needs in their senior center, and interpret that into a program, taking into account all of the items that I just talked about, code, site, and that sort of thing, trying to adhere to some level of budget. And you'll see as I go through budgets shortly that the cost of a building of this magnitude is a fairly expensive proposition, but we've worked very hard to maintain a kind of a building program and a building type that suit the needs of the community and meet something that shows a level of restraint when it comes to budget and spending. So in our program of spaces, we've gone through many exercises with the committee. Amy has been involved with this and looked at this many different ways. And we first came up with a program that was, I can't say it was generous, but it was a very nice building and offered some room for expansion. And it really was what we took to what we brought to you, the voters voted on it last May. And after coming back from that, we took a look at this again, work through the sizes, what can we live with, how can we do some shared spaces, multi-purpose spaces, and so that the building definitely gets used more, a little less in terms of expansion, although the building is definitely a 15 to 20 to 25 year building. The building is longer than that, however, at that point it may be looked at whether it would need to be expanded depending upon the growth of the town of Mendon. So you can't read this, but the committee did an incredible amount of work on looking at utilization. So when I go back to our program of spaces, one might ask, well, why do we need these spaces? And would all this space be used and how often would it be used? So members of the committee really took some time to go through programming at the center. And again, this is available for the public to see. I just have it here as a representation of the size and magnitude of the effort that was put into this, that it looks at on a daily basis, the programming that there is a demand for, not that they would like to have, there is a demand for, and they're turning people away. And so this shows and demonstrates that the center will be used on a very active basis, and it won't sit there with spaces with the lights off, that for the most part, this thing is going to be used from open till closed, and then is available to the public, to the community for other uses on nights and weekends. So after going through several iterations over the years, it came to that the current site is really not the best site for the senior center. And we looked at several sites. And this site and the community or the committee looked at the sites and evaluated them based on certain criteria. We helped lay out the criteria of what type of a site works best for a senior center with regards to accessibility, traffic flow on the site. We like to offer some fairly generous traffic flow so that we can avoid mishaps on the site. We really don't like pedestrians and cars to interact too often. So that it makes it a very easy site for people to navigate. And so they settled on this site on North Avenue across from the school. Part of our project is actually creating a driveway into the site that could be used by other town uses on the site in the future. But it is the first project to develop on this site.
Just a note, Mike, that the site is approximately 22 acres And we'd be taking a footprint, I believe, of 3,
Right.
a little less than 3.
Exactly.
So there's substantial more acreage there for town development or future use.
So kind of looking in closer on our site, our building is placed such that we have ample parking around the building so that there is easy access from all places on the site to the building. You'll see as we go through this, our building has an upper level and a lower level. The functions of the senior center are placed on both with internal circulation via stairs and an elevator. But there is a lower level entrance that allows public access to a meeting space, easy access for after hours, and public access to the food pantry, which I'll go over in just a moment. So looking at our main level, which some may be called the first floor main level, it's the primary level of the building. And on the left of the screen is the main vestibule, the main entrance on the upper level. We have a lobby, we have administrative offices, and then we have program spaces. And then we have a kitchen and a multi-purpose. And if the committee felt strongly that the multi-purpose room needs to seat at tables about 110 to 125 people for the functions that they like to hold. And also that room is available for town access as well. There is a commercial style kitchen, although not a 100% commercial kitchen. It isn't necessarily required, but they could be, it's accessible and could easily provide meals up to 125 people.
One thing about that function room, if you know the current center, we have one room which constantly gets reconfigured. There's another room which is not accessible with ease with handicapped folks. So we have one main room, and that constantly gets reconfigured. In this rendition here, you see there's a divider in the middle of that large room. So we can run 2 programs simultaneously on the main floor, as well as some community area and a library, reading area, computer area, as well as facilities offices to meet with clients who need assistance with fuel, blood pressure screening, and other things. So a lot of the primary functions can be done there, and that function room now can be split, where today we only have one room to do all those things that I mentioned before.
Yeah, Phil, thank you for that. So the idea behind this is that multi-purpose rooms are important. So typically on a day-to-day basis, the senior center might use half of this room and leave it set up with tables for lunch, for games, for crafts, for various activities. And the other half may not have the table set up. It may be set up for exercise. It may be set up for other programs. But this rendering or floor plan here shows it set up with all tables to demonstrate that we could accommodate the 125 people. So moving to our lower level, you'll notice that to the left, we don't have a full basement under the entire building because the nature of the site is that moving dirt becomes expensive. And so in order to maintain costs, we aren't developing the full basement under the part of the upper level, just because we don't need the space. And it also becomes buried in a basement. And so we don't need it per se. So when you go to the lower level, we have another multi-purpose room that typically would be divided and be used as 2 activity spaces, and then could be opened up for a larger meeting, or activity by the senior center or for folks in town. You notice that off to the right is another vestibule. This is a lower level vestibule with parking just located outside. So it provides direct access for the use of this multi-purpose room. You'll also notice that we have a door that allows the rest of the senior center to be locked off, and that we have a restroom so that folks using that as a meeting room after hours in the evening could actually have access to a restroom again, with allowing the rest of the building to be secure. This lower level entrance and vestibule also provides access to the food pantry so that that can operate somewhat independently of the senior center. Then down there on the lower level is also another office and then a game room. We also have provided in this unisex toilets on the lower level with showers that allow this to be used as an emergency set as well. So that opens the building and the project for grant funding as well. These are the exterior elevations, which I'll go through fairly quickly because most folks, two-dimensional elevations don't mean as much as when I get to the three-dimensional. So this is the upper level main entrance to the building. The architecture is really kind of inspired by New England farmhouse with an attached barn. As an architect, it's always very challenging to take what is a smaller scale type of architecture and paint it onto a much larger building. And so how do we get these larger buildings to function and well in their plan, but also have an aesthetic that is suitable to the community? And so as we went through this process, we realized that the committee came to the conclusion that this type of architecture, when we proposed this, would actually really fit the town of Mendon really well and look really beautiful in that field up there. And it's my understanding that was once an orchard. So this, you could be starting to recall the farm that might have been there at one time. From the other side, the lower level side, this is the portion of the building, if you will, that takes on the barn aesthetic. And you'll see the lower level entrance. There is a deck out the back. We are required to have part of that deck and that stair as one of the means of egress out of that large multi-purpose room. Part of the issue of putting that up on a second floor is that we do need to get 125 people out of there very quickly if there is an issue. So this would be the lower side, and as you come up 16, you would actually see this elevation of the building. I think it would be quite beautiful out there on site. I would like to note that all of the materials that we're proposing on this are low maintenance materials. They could be, we're either looking at hardy siding or another non-wood paintable, non-paintable product, so that it minimizes the maintenance on the building. The other thing that we've built into the cost of this building is that it is what we call a high performing building, meaning that it is low impact, so that it is suitable for putting solar power. It's using heat pumps for heating and cooling, which become very efficient. So it's a very efficient, very comfortable building and very low impact building and low maintenance building. So the cost of ownership over time does not have a huge impact on the town. This is another view of the lower level of the large mass, the building, which shows the food pantry on the left side and then the vestibule entrance. And then under the deck on the right side is the windows looking out of the meeting room. You can see that the large meeting space, multi-purpose space, has clear story windows, making it a very light, bright, comfortable space. Even when you're inside that building with the window fenestrations, window patterns and all, it does take on a very New England comfortable feel. So after going through many iterations and looking at how do we reduce the cost of this building, we took the square footage. And when you're looking at building costs, it isn't simply just take a couple thousand square feet out of the building and you're going to get to the number. It takes many square feet to significantly reduce the cost of building because the basic necessities of the building are there. The elevator, the kitchen, the heating and cooling, all of those things, the plumbing fixtures are all there, the number of restrooms. We figure out numbers of fixtures based upon capacity of a building. So we've reduced the capacity a bit, but it doesn't significantly do that. So we had to look at a number of ways to reduce the cost of this. So we did reduce it by approximately 2,000 square feet. And along with deleting some other items and really looking at how could we get the most building for the most comfortable budget. And so after doing this iteration, you'll see that we're at 11,900,000, and that the cost of the building is only one part of that, but the cost of building the building is the other part of it. And so all of that is included in here. This is a total project cost of 11.9. There is contingency in here because we are at a very early stage of design. So we have to leave some room, wiggle room. So that is built in there. So there isn't this need to come back to the community and say, well, we didn't consider this, well, we didn't consider that. Part of working with an architect and professional estimators is we bring to the table the experience, the real world experience, the everyday experience, the market experience that allows us to put a building like this together and think of as many of those things as are going to be necessary, so there aren't hidden gotchas in the end, so that we can deliver this building for $11,900,000. So that is how we got there.
Yeah, just a note on this point is we've worked with Mike. I've worked with Mike now for the past year and a half or so. But the importance of having an independent cost estimator assigned to the architect, not an independent one, not the same architect. I feel comfortable with these numbers. You can see that they have 12.5% or 12% for contingencies. They're doing the right things in there. They have inflation factor numbers in there, so that we're anticipating, if passed, we start construction late next year. We've taken in the inflationary factors that are currently running now. One thing to note about this number is that in the past 4 years, the building costs have gone up 37 to 38% in the industry. So that's impacted this cost of this building immensely as well. And also it is a municipal building, so it'll be prevailing wages that will have to be used here on this building. So there's several things that drive this number up as you look at this number. Okay. With that, I think, Mike, maybe we could, any comments from Elena? Would you like to share select board viewpoint?
Oh, sure. So the select board is very supportive of this project. We see it as part of Mendon's long-term capital plans. So that is a question that has come up from many members of the community is, how will this project affect other projects? And the idea is that we are considering multiple projects, and this is a project that is at a very advanced stage, which to be put forward to the voters. This project is, as you saw, this project has been in development for over 10 years effectively. There are many other projects in the capital planning queue. We're actually going to have a bit of a presentation about that at the select board meeting in 2 days, talking about the capital plans for the town as a whole. So we have had a lot of comments and questions from the community about what this means for other community needs. And we do want to address those concerns because the town is able to do multiple projects, not necessarily fund them all at once, but we can work on moving those other projects forward. So the select board has been very supportive of this project in particular for a number of reasons that have been laid out by others here, that this is there has been demand from the community for people using the center. There's been a general demand for more space, for meeting and function space from other community members and groups. Meeting space is at a premium in this town, as well as office space. So this is a need that the select board recognizes and that we are working towards finding a solution. So we hope that we will be able to move forward with this project in, there's this project proposed now, but we will be continuing to find ways of making this project work, as well as finding ways to make many other projects work.
Yeah, I might state that over the past year, working with the select board, it's been a partnership with them. We're looking at not only this project, but the impact of the overall town. And I think we'll address that in some of the Q&As as we go forward. But I think it's been a pleasure working with the team just to get this thing. And it's not just a one-shot project, in which I've been amended for many years, and I've seen a lot of that happen. But I think there's more thoughtfulness going on now than there has been in the past.
And hopefully we'll be able to communicate that with the community, that this is our goal, that this is, we very much want this project to happen, but it is not meant to be at the expense of the other projects. And I guess that's the message I want to, get out to the community is we are working on many of the other projects that people have brought forward. just at different stages. So roads, housing, fields. We are in the, early stages of looking at the fire station, but we hope to be developing studies to look at the fire station needs. So there are many needs in the community, and we recognize that. But this is a project that has been a long time coming, that was started long before the current select board was on the board.
And if you look at the population, 27 to 28% of the community are seniors, 1,700 plus people. With that note, though, I'm sorry, Jeremy, could I have some comments from you, sir, some cost impacts of the implications of Mike's proposal, and any of your comments or thoughts?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Phil, and the rest of the MSCC building committee. So what we're looking at is a roughly, like Mike said, an $11.95 million project. I've worked with our financial advisors, who are the folks who help us bring debt to debt capital markets, to talk about what the taxpayer impact on this would be. So when we look at relative to what our fiscal 2024, because this would be a debt exclusion, that's the thing that drives the taxpayer impact piece. So when we look at our fiscal 2024 excluded debt level, and then add this on top of it as some other stuff falls off. So this is kind of a net approach. For a house with an assessed value of $500,000, the yearly cost of this project would be between about $130 to $135 on top of what last year's tax bill was. That's highly dependent on a number of things, but one thing I want to make sure that it hadn't come up tonight, and Elena brought it up earlier in a different meeting, is that we have some federal funding kind of queued up, not assured, but kind of in a good spot for $850,000. So that would bring the town's contribution to this project down by about 7%. And then we would borrow less money, and then it would be a lower taxpayer impact. So that 130 to 135 range that we're talking about, right? Because that depends on overall cost, and it depends on interest rates, and it depends on a lot of things. So we don't want to nail down a very specific number. That number would likely come lower. And that number is above what the taxes were paid last year. So as debt rolls off, that number gets lower. As we add other debt, we'll talk about that taxpayer impact, and try to keep our debt management at a similar level so there's not big spikes year to year. But I think the takeaway from this should be that the taxpayer impact, the maximum taxpayer impact to this above what was felt last year would be in the 130 to 135 range at its maximum.
For an house assessed at 500,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I thank you for that. That's an important caveat. So that's for a house assessed at $500,000. So we didn't go through the exercise of saying for every unique assessed value across town. So if you just think about your own individual residence and how that compares to a $500,000 home, you can kind of extrapolate from there.
Jeremy, do you want to share your thoughts on capital planning? I know.
Yes, I would also welcome that, Jeremy, if you could.
Yeah, certainly. So this kind of fits in. I think the committee in the presentation tonight did a really nice job of laying out the kind of long range planning of this project specifically. So this is not a project that popped up a year ago and we decided to go full bore on. This was a project with an identified community need and large constituencies and large swaths of town saying, from disparate backgrounds saying this is a project that the town needs to undertake, which is evidenced by the select board's kind of repeated endorsement and support of this project. So kind of as it fits in, so we have, I encourage folks to tune in to either the finance committee meeting tomorrow or the joint finance committee and select board meeting on Wednesday, about what special town meeting appropriations will be for our available free cash and how we're investing in capital across town. So If folks will recall, last year, select board used and town meeting approved about $250,000 in additional road money. So principally, our roads are funded through a state program called Chapter 90, which is formulaic and based upon our kind of age and mileage worth of roads. And how they fall into various formulas. And we get about $270,000 a year for that. So the town essentially doubled our investments in roads last year. And the discussion in the next 2 nights between the two committees will be again doubling that investment. So an additional $250,000. Again, that's up for kind of debate as to how much it will be, but that's kind of where the committee's heads at. In addition to a large investment in Providence Street and that culvert repair through Mass DOT's small bridge program, but which will require a large local investment too. So we're tackling multiple things at the same time. We're investing in roads at the same time that we're investing in physical plant and community needs such as this. And that dovetails with a number of ARPA, so the American Rescue Plan Act, which was, COVID era stimulus money passed by the federal government. So the town had, I think, somewhere around $1.8 million and invested heavily in public safety infrastructure and equipment, as well as some programmatic needs that the town's been tackling at the same time. So this, and then as we think about capital planning going forward, we have a working group on this, and we'll formalize that in a committee as well. But we're identifying capital needs for the current year, for the next 4 years, and then for out years beyond that, and coming up with funding and financing strategies that address all of those. So this is not a project that exists in a vacuum for the town. This is something that's next up for us and currently up for us because of the long range planning that has happened and that is happening. So this exists within the realm of other investments that we're making across town.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I guess I'd open it to any questions, anyone in the audience and or anyone online.
So the town does own the land,
Yes, it's,
and
we
it's,
purchased it a number of years back. I think it's got to be
Municipal use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
early 2000s.
And yes, there have been a few other proposals for that land. I know there was an attempt to have a joint public safety building at that space.
2004, I think. Right around.
But yes, it was purchased specifically for municipal use.
Yep.
And this is,
Municipal use.
hopefully, we will be able to use it in that way, since that was the intention. And I think it would be, probably we should look up the details of that, but I think it was a couple of $1 million to purchase that land.
I believe I heard the number somewhere around $2 to $3 million.
Right, it was a
Substantial.
large purchase for future municipal use that has not been followed. The town has not managed to follow through on that municipal use, other than using it as an overflow parking lot for Club School, which, by the way, should still be able to happen because the building will not be taking up that space that is used for Club overflow parking.
That should be fine.
So that should, right, and with actually, can you bring up the lot, like, because I know that is a question that I've heard occasionally, is what will happen? Will the school still be able to use?
So we did discuss that many times in the course of this, and at one point, if you were following along through the process, we did, in fact, show that there could be parking constructed here if it wanted to be more formal. But
Right.
currently, it could, as it exists currently as being parking on grass.
Right.
It could still happen, or down the road, the town could choose to build some parking here because we do have a sidewalk. And so it would be easy access over to the school.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that parking, what we know is parking for Clough is still there.
yeah.
And for the country fair and the other place. Anything else? Okay, what I've asked the team to do is I handed out to Peg and Dave and Mike, Elena. Questions have come in via emails, phone calls. And, an interesting question I received via email. Somebody looked me up through the town website. And the question came in, the ADA accessibility at the new site. And it came up with a statement saying specifically, the accessibility at the current senior center site is really very concerning for a wheelchair person or someone with handicaps of that nature. She's hoping that the new center is designed to be used by young and old and anyone with disabilities, such as wheelchairs and capabilities.
Would you like me to speak to that?
Please, Mike.
So the Americans with Disabilities Act is a very robust set of guidelines for us. In fact, it's law that we as architects and designers need to follow when both designing a building and when designing a site. And it specifically addresses items that this person would raise, that when you're on site, you can't have slopes that exceed a certain percentage, such that folks navigating the site in wheelchairs, walkers, etc., can easily not only navigate the site, it addresses from the time I get to a parking spot till the time I use the building, exit the building, and leave the building and then leave the site. So it addresses both the site and the internal workings of the building, which we have addressed 100% through the building.
And that was a great comment that came in. An unfortunate person says they can't use the current facility at all. I'm going to take the next one and then maybe take the one after that. But the next one I think we covered pretty well. We already voted it down. Why did it come up again? I think in the simplest fashion is in reviewing the need for the town, the lack of space, lack of capabilities within the building, and listening to the select board, taking advice from the town, listening to the voters. We came up with a new proposal that's 11.9 and 2,000 square feet less, trying to make it more palatable for the organization. But the need is still there. It is a priority for the town. And it's broader than just the seniors. It's a community center that provides capabilities for the entirety, which it does today in its own little limited way. Okay. Next question, Ted.
What are the challenges of the existing building? Well, first, I would invite anybody to please come down and see the building for yourself. Because you would see, as Phil said earlier, we have the single room downstairs and we have one office, which is Amy's. The administrative assistant, he is out in the open in the middle of the room when there are activities going on. When you go up the stairs, it's a very narrow stairway to get to the second level, which the maximum capacity there is approximately 15. And the capacity for downstairs is 50. And as Phil said earlier, we have 28% of the population, over 1,700 people. Now, many of our seniors are still working, so they are not using the center during the day. But we do have activities in the evening for seniors in the community to use, like yoga. And so we want to be available to have the building used by everybody in the community. Also, we are the town's food pantry, which we have this very small space downstairs. And a lot of people who come in to use the food pantry would like some privacy, and we don't blame them. So we try to stagger people picking up their groceries just to give them their confidentiality. We have very small and adequate kitchen facilities. If you have more than 3 to 4 people in that room, there's a chance that someone's going to get hurt.
3.
Well, 3, depending on our size. I'll just put it back. But anyway, it's a very small area and it's inadequate to meet. We can only do lunches twice a week. We'd like to do lunches more. Also, if you've been to the parking lot for an event, there are people who pull in, they have nowhere to park, and so they turn around and they leave, even though they've signed up for the event. Because it's inadequate. If you have a wheelchair, if you have a walker, we have 3 handicap spots and we have 26 outlying spots, which are not sufficient for the people we serve. And also, I have to say, we've been very fortunate. We've been able to use the parking lot across the street, but the chief can attest to the traffic and the speed on that road. And it's very, very difficult to cross. So that's another drawback of that site. Dangerous street, and we have outdated electrical and plumbing issues. And the final issue I'll talk about will be that we are also the emergency shelter in town. If there was ever anything in an emergency and people had to leave their homes and find a place where there was food and heat, we have a generator there, they would have to come to the center. I've told you already about our capacities. 15 upstairs, 50 downstairs, and we have about 36 makeshift beds. We have no showers, and we have the food pantry. So it's totally inadequate in an emergency. There'd be nowhere for people to go. And in our new building, we've made accommodations for that. We've added the shower component because we know we can apply for federal funding for these things. And also we're going to need more beds, and we need a larger food pantry and a place for the people to rest their head in if they have to stay over. So that's, I think, of many of the challenges, but I always invite people to please stop by. You're always welcome. And hopefully you'll find a parking place.
I'll touch on the next one briefly. Why can't we renovate the existing center? The center to the left of it, a lot of wetland. If you look at the topology of the area, there's quite a bit of portion of wetland around it. So there's not really much expansion behind it. And we tried to look at that, and the cost of redoing that building is essentially you'd have to redo it. You have to gut the entire first existing piece, tear down the back off completely to make it a single floor. You'd have to relocate the center for 12 to 18 months because during construction, you couldn't use it. So you'd have a demolition cost plus a construction cost that would still have to come up to all the regulations, all the standards, all the ADA, all the elevators. So the cost, fire suppression. So all those things are still the cost we're going to put in a new building where we own the property anyway. So effectively, it's cheaper to build a new building and not destroy the old one and rebuild on top of it. The old one we do have in plan. I think the select board has a reuse study so that once this proposal, if we're fortunate to pass, a reuse committee will put together to identify uses. And the building is functional. It's just too small and inadequate for the purposes we're using.
And there is demand in other town departments for additional office space. So this, as well as additional garage space. So the current location of the senior center, that is an asset for the town that the town will be able to make use of.
So that's what they would do afterwards, and hopefully after the community center was built, they'd be able to use it for town purposes then.
Yeah.
That is the hope. So it would be, right, it would probably be, there would probably be some formal voting, maybe from the select board. Definitely there would be input. But the hope is to have some studies that look at the use of that building and potentially other town buildings and properties, as well as departments, and establish where the needs are and how that space can best be used. But we're confident that that space can be used because we have a number of departments that already would be interested in having space there.
Jeremy, I think you touched upon it, but you may want to just expand if you'd like. We need to fix our roads first, quote unquote. I think you touched upon it, and maybe you could just elaborate about the capital planning and how we move forward beyond year 1 and 2 in your mind.
Yeah, the town conducted a pavement management study. So we're kind of we have a roadmap, so to speak, forward on how we approach repairing, replacing, and upgrading roads in Mendon. The select board and town meeting has accelerated that by providing, an additional, hopefully after November, an additional $500,000 in these past 2 fiscal years to accelerate that repair. So these things are happening in concert. the senior and community center checks a lot of boxes, and roads are important and vital to the way we function as a community. From our, as anyone can tell, your daily experience getting to and from where you need to get to, but then also our own public safety needs. So that's why the town has made that a priority. But like I've said to a lot of select board members, and they've said to me, we can walk and chew gum. So we're doing both. We're looking to invest in this community center while also looking to invest and repair our roads.
Yeah, interesting enough, if you look at what Jeremy said, is that we're taking a debt exclusion for the senior center, which is an exclusion. But we're handling the monies that Jeremy's talking about through our normal budget. So we're not saying we're going to hit you with another exclusion just for this. So, I mean, we're really trying to manage the funds, and we're not looking for additional funds from capital or from ARPA for this building. We're looking at it as a debt exclusion, keeping this expense isolated, which gives the walk and chew gum capability for the town, rather than drying up all the funds in all the pools and dumping it into one building and have nothing for anybody else. That's my humble interpretation, Jeremy. It says, how many years will a tax increase last? Jeremy, I'll default to you as well.
Yeah, so the way this debt is structured would be, so I've talked about this at other information sessions before as well in the building committee meeting. So if it's an $11.9 million project and it starts, in December, there's not $11.9 million out the door that month, nor is there that out the door by June 30th. So we would structure the borrowing so as to minimize our interest costs and our borrowing costs. So we borrow a small amount short term in fiscal 25 to cover initial costs, and then another small amount short term in fiscal 26 to see what was out the door by June 30th. But then ultimately take out the whole cost of the project likely in fiscal 27. So that's a long way of saying that the overall tax impact will be about 30 years. It's a 30-year bond. But the cost impact in the first handful of years will be much smaller, and then the full weight will be a little bit later. But we're maximizing we're minimizing the short-term impact to be able to minimize the overall borrowing costs for the town. So the short answer is 30 years.
Thank you, Jeremy. Can the rest of the land be used in the future? Eleni, I know.
Oh, sure. So the rest of this land, yes. So since this will only be using about 3 acres of this 20+ acre property, there is the possibility that this can be used for additional municipal projects. There has been some question about whether this might be added to the Armide. So we have a mixed use overlay district in several properties of the town. This property was included in that original proposal, but then removed from the on the floor at town meeting so that it's not zoned for mixed use. So, and just so everyone knows, mixed use means it can have commercial as well as residential on the same property. And the age restricted mixed use overlay was specifically to have homes for like over 55.
Yep.
So there is that possibility that this land could be considered for purposes of mixed use development. So that potentially, so I mean, there are many possibilities which will be decided by the town of the future. So that include selling portions of the land to developers for a project, or using the additional portions of the land for further municipal use for additional municipal buildings. I know some question has come up about whether playing fields could be put there, but I've heard that this is not the best space in town for that because it's a hillside. And there are other properties in town, including some owned by the town, that would be better suited towards practice fields because they have more level sections. So that specific use is perhaps not feasible for this, but I don't know if we mentioned explicitly in this session, but we are engaging the community. We're going to be having a fields committee to explore where fields could go, and they may evaluate this property and see that maybe I'm wrong. I have not looked at it at this. I've been told that it's, you know, pretty hilly for fields, but a committee will be looking at all of the available town properties, so including this one and others, to see where playing fields and practice fields could go in the future. So this property definitely can be used for other purposes, and investing in the access driveway will actually potentially reduce some of the cost for future projects who could then build on to this road without having to start a new road.
Thank you. I think we talked about why the price tag is so high. You know, just briefly, 38% increase in the past 4 years of cost. It is a public building with all the capabilities that Mike talked about.
I think it's important to note that since Mendon doesn't have public water supply, that any municipal building is required to be sprinkled by the building code. And so that we need to store 22,000 gallons of water on the ground, which is figured into this project. But we do need to supply the water and the pump system to sprinkle the building.
Along with all the other, in the green building, possibility to make sure it's energy efficient and low operating costs. We'll just take away from recreation fields for the school. I think the select board's addressing that through the committees. We're trying to work with the schools.
Right. There are at least two different efforts going on. So one is working with the school district on their long-term capital plans, which do include fields at the schools, as well as potentially investigating fields that are practice fields in Mendon. For at least some part of those projects, there are CPA funds available. So the Community Preservation Act allows. So we as taxpayers, a small amount of each tax dollar gets put into the CPA fund.
3%.
And this money has a specific, some restricted uses, including acquiring land for open space, but also there's recreational use. So there is the potential to use money that Mendon already effectively has in the bank for recreation fields, and potentially, and we'll be working with the school district for their capital plan needs. So I don't know, maybe Jeremy, if you have additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it ties into kind of what I said before, that this is one kind of piece of the puzzle for capital for us. I think you covered most of it there on the fields there, Elena.
Another question, I think we've touched upon it, is how to get projects running. The new fire station came up as a question, along with new fields. I mean, there's a host of different projects and ideas out there.
Yeah, so with that, Phil, that ties in kind of the same as well. So there's a cadence. We're starting to formalize, and we have been formalizing, not starting. We are formalizing what a capital improvements plan looks like for the town. So it's really to make sure we get away from, and so we don't institute kind of squeaky wheel syndrome. So it's not, I need this, so let's prioritize this. That there is a longer range plan and a thoughtful approach to getting from, hey, I have this anticipated or identified need, and then working towards the ultimate expensive but important investment and solution. So for something like a fire station, Yeah, it's yes, and it's this project now because we've done the feasibility, we have the identified land, we have the identified need. We've gone through the studies and the machinations for it, and a fire station is possibly, right, not going to commit any future board to anything, and any future town meeting to anything. But it's part of the process, and we need an identified need. We need a long range plan for the department. We need to invest in a feasibility study and identify land and all those sorts of things. And none of these things, the senior center included, exist in a vacuum. So the senior center is not taking place or not happening in place of a fire station. It's happening now because it followed the process identified by the capital process in town, and the fire station and the fire department can take advantage of the same sorts of processes, and we'll likely have similar discussions to this with the community in a number of years once we progress through those steps. So it's not this instead of that. I think it's more this than that.
So one of the questions we had was, why was this lot selected? I think we kind of covered this too. We have a municipal piece of land of 20 years ago that's supposed to be for municipal buildings, and we still haven't built anything on it. I think that this could serve a dual purpose. This could be the foot in the door to actually start those municipal projects. We're going to be making a significant investment to get into that property. That investment could serve as a dual purpose. It'll serve the building costs we had to do anyways, but now it's the entry to that property. Now it looks more appealing for other projects to come in there because you already have the entrance, you already have the vision, you already have the plans, you have the engineering, you have the septic, you have the field that was checked out for contaminants. That's one of our other questions. There are no contaminants from the old apple orchard. So this really could be the first domino to fall that could start, developing that property what it was meant to be 20 years ago when the town envisioned it. It's centrally located. It's going to be a great spot for the seniors. There's going to be a property in front of it. There's being developed currently for a bank and other private shops. So it's going to be local to the school, local to other shops, local to the center. It's large enough to accommodate growth. So even though we're using 3 acres, there's still room behind there and to the side where if we had to in 30, 40, 50 years from now, make an addition to it if we needed to. And then the most important thing in my eyes for public safety is the traffic. Right now, half a loan of the traffic goes by that site every single day. There's over 10,000 cars that go by Providence Road on the current site. And the speed limit also there is 40 miles an hour. And we know that if it's 40, people are probably doing 50, 45, hopefully not 60, but that happens sometimes too. Peg mentioned, we're utilizing a lot across the street. It's not safe for people walking across the street in a parking lot in a 40 mile, 50 mile an hour zone to get to the senior center. Especially when we talk about disabilities, people in wheelchairs, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It's tough to pull in there. If you're trying to pull into an entrance, everybody knows when you slow down and try to get in there. If people are doing 40 and they don't want to slow down, they can be beeping their horn as they drive by. Flow on North Ave is naturally slowed down. The lights slow it down, the traffic slows it down, the speed limit's significantly lower. School hours, people say, it's going to fit with school hours. I think school hours are a great thing. That keeps traffic slow there. And if that's the time we're using it, the traffic will be slow for the seniors there also.
Does anybody know if there's a smart light at that intersection there?
I'm not, yeah.
So the Mass Department of Transportation has plans to redo that intersection of Route 16 and North Avenue. So there will be
Left turns.
I believe there is a left turn lane, left turn arrows. It is online. So that is, we've had public hearings about that. I believe we can find all of that information online. But yes, that, now I can't remember what year. Jeremy, do you remember when that work is going to start?
So that's set to be bid by Mass DOT in May of 2025. We have We have some very, very dense design documents. So we'll stand up a page on our website with a number of information, with a number of pieces of information. But it's set to be bid in May of 2025, some prep work in the fall of 2025, and construction will complete in calendar year 2027. So it'll be phased, that intersection there up at the, is it? Sorry, Maple, the intersection with the war monument there, and then again up further on 16, there'll be another signalized intersection. So yeah, the project is ongoing, and we can share more information as we get more complete information from DOT. But as it's a state road, we're kind of a little bit of takers of information rather than creators. But we'll have more for the community as we get closer and know more. But it'll be a late 2025 through 2027 project.
But the intersection will have substantial improvements in next few years.
Yes.
From Hopedale, Hopedale line all the way until Hartford Avenue West. They're significantly changing the whole layout of 16 from that complete area. They started doing this back in 2017, so that tells you how long it takes for capital projects to go on. 2017, they had the stakeholders come out, the previous town administrator, the fire chief, myself, and we spent probably a year or two just in design phase, and then it finds its line on the project. They designated Mendon, a couple of years ago. It went to the select board probably about a year ago, and then they went through the process again because there were questions that took so long that there was a completely new board that didn't know what the previous boards had done. So they kind of had to rehash that. And that was, Jeremy said that they're going to bid it. They're at the point where they're ready to roll. They've already called us about plans for details, plans for detours, plans for what we're going to do over there. So
that'll impact the building of King Center.
no,
Sure.
no,
Shouldn't.
no. Our interest is farther down.
Okay.
So it's a self-contained site. It's nice at that site. It goes farther off. So
We don't own right at the.
we don't. That's another developer who owns that. That's where the bank's going and some other high industrial shops.
So
It
this
will affect their project.
we're actually almost across this, we're across from the school parking lot.
Yeah, we're kind of putting it down in.
Yep. Might tie in nicely with that, actually.
I think we've covered most of the other frequently asked questions. Only thing I might recap again is that, 28% of the population is seniors. The center does more than just seniors. It serves 410 families for food pantry. It delivers and also takes things there. It handles veterans benefits, all ages. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts meet there. Lions Club meets there. It's also for durable medical equipment. You can get that there. So it's not just the senior side. It's acting as a service for the entire community of all ages. So I wanted to stress that point out. And then anticipated growth of the 60 plus in Mendon by 2030 it'll be 30% instead of just 27, 28%. I think it's time to, as mentioned by everybody here, this project's a lot older than I've been working on it. The need's been identified as a priority. Other things like municipal safety, the police station, was deemed more important when this was approached several years ago. And it took a backseat appropriately at that time. The due diligence wasn't done, but I think we've done the due diligence for this project. And if anyone has a question, I can be reached through the town website, through my emails, everywhere else that's out there. And rather than just post questions and have debates about it on Facebook, come to a meeting.
When is our next meeting?
Our next meeting will be 2 weeks from Tuesday, right after the election. But I'm reachable between here and then.
And if you're an organization and you'd like one of us to come and speak, we're more than happy to do that.
Oh, by the way, you bring up a good point. We've met with a lot of committees and boards within the town, and the Conservation Committee, the Land Use Committee, the Library, the Architecture Committee, and they're all supportive of this project. The Lions are supportive of it. So we have a ton of support, and I know there's a lot of objections out there, a lot of concerns, and I know there's a financial impact. And I recognize that times are hard with inflation. But it's, when you divide that $1, 130 to 135 a year, it's about $11.50 a month. That's a pizza. That's a muffin and a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts.
That's not.
You're right, I can't get. That's not even a sub at Subway.
It'd be frozen in the groceries.
So I'd urge you all to support the project.
Oh, and I think, I don't remember whether we said there are 2 votes coming up related to this. I'm not sure if we've said that
No,
explicitly at this meeting. So we, as you probably all know, this is question 6 on the ballot for the November 5th election. And then it also will be at the special town meeting on November 18th. So there will be an article, and that the warrant for that meeting will be finalized actually this in 2 nights, right here in this room. And so that warrant will be going out to the public shortly thereafter. But it will be, this question will be on this special town meeting warrant as well, where it will need a 2/3 majority to pass.
Good point, thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? I'd like to thank everybody for the information meeting. And I would like to make a motion to close
I'll make a motion to close.
second the building committee meeting.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
That meeting's
We have
adjourned.
people, I think we have people on,
We don't have remote board members.
we don't, I thought, my God, it was there and,
I don't
wait a
see.
minute, he was there.
I think I was filling in as alternate because he
Oh.
was not here at the beginning.
Nope. All right, thank you.
Oh, was
Thank
that
you.
was interested?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.